Murderbot and Mensah nearly died in a blazing cliffhanger last week, just hours after the Preservation Alliance survey crew and Murderbot had a vital but tense discussion about what the former's free will would mean for everyone on this expedition. Written by showrunners Chris and Paul Weitz and directed by Aurora Guerrero, Episode 6, Command Feed, quickly ends the pair's near miss but in other ways heightens the series' tension, particularly by establishing a decisive violent breaking point that might end Murderbot's developing bond with its would-be found family. Despite barely avoiding an exploding beacon, Murderbot and Mensah are grounded until they repair the broken hopper. Murderbot is reminded of its favorite episode of the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon. In this episode, the improbable relationship between Captain Hossein and Nabbot 337 Alt-66 transitions from developing tension to theatrical fantasy. But the last thing Murderbot wants is a comparison to its current situation. Like everyone else, it uses ridiculous media as a diversion when things in the real world are stressful. But this time it can't put its head in the sand because Mensah's helpless companions' lives are at stake. And to make matters worse, Mensah and Murderbot are making repairs on the fly. In order to make room for the 20th season of Sanctuary Moon to be downloaded, Murderbot removed the unnecessary copy of the maintenance manual that was included with the hopper and kept it in its own databanks. This decision is now biting Murderbot in the armored butt because the entire mechanism of the hopper is offline. It goes without saying that Mensah is not pleased with this knowledge. The largest change in their chemistry to date is her rage at the odd sec unit that she has made an effort to comprehend and adapt. Newcomer Lee BB is intent on wooing everyone in the area while the other scientists finish packing up the habitat. Since Gurathin ignored her in the previous episode and a horrified Murderbot didn't return her boundary crossing and dehumanizing, for want of a better term, advances, she is directing her excruciatingly awkward flirtations against Wedge this week. Wedge is shocked when a stranger kisses her injured hand, but Lee BB's inquiries concerning the local creature that left Wedge with that scar are cut short by Gurathin's unanswered calls to Mensah and Murderbot. A subsequent exchange between the three characters highlights the sharp structural differences between the Corporation Rim and the Preservation Alliance, as they have little choice but to wait and worry. The Corporation Rim's requirement that potential parents seek a license before having children is beyond Wedge and Gurathin's comprehension. In the Alliance, the community helps to pay for the costs, primarily through science-gathering missions like this one. Sure, newborns can be resource-devouring black holes, their paraphrased words, not mine. An impatient Lee BB reveals her actual intentions by drawing a gun on them and demanding access to their hub system after much back and forth, during which Lee BB's attempts to get the team's survey data hit the stone wall of Gurathin's refusal to share. Meanwhile, Mensah and Murderbot have an advance with the hopper. However, when one of Mensah's panic attacks decides to occur, this pair has a moment of sincere, non-transactional kindness in contrast to Lee BB's overbearing deceit. Murderbot uses Sanctuary Moon, the only balm it is familiar with, because it wants to help but is unaware how to shield a customer from emotional discomfort. On one of the hopper's screens, it projects the selected episode, promising a skeptical Mensah that this soothing episode has synchronized breathing. In fact, Mensah's tense nerves are calmed by following the prescribed practice. Murderbot appears both surprised and comforted by this strange, amazing sec unit as she memorizes the episode's soothing mantra. Murderbot, still leaking from the horrific knife wound it received during the hopper's crash, is shown face down on the floor as the tender exchange comes to a conclusion. After an unknown amount of time, Murderbot awakens on its back with multiple folded blankets supporting its head. Mensah fixes the leak by pouring the hopper's lubricant supply into Murderbot's arm port, and he hovers close by. Motivated, Murderbot proposes using a portion of its own brain circuitry to replace the hopper's burned-out control coil. It's cloned tissue intended for high-speed data processing, even though the wires may be composed of cloned organic tissue. Mensah reluctantly slices through 2 layers of Murderbot's flesh, revealing a spine composed of linked iron bolts, and removes a piece of nerve tissue from the spinal column of the squeamish vegetarian. Mensah laughs half giddy. Murderbot makes a dry joke, and the hopper's systems come back to life. Before Wedge summons them downstairs, Rathi, Arata, and Pinley enjoy a somewhat awkward shoulder massage, oblivious to the terrible situation that is taking place downstairs. Lee BB is in complete control and has the group at gunpoint, but Gurathin is unfazed by her threats and won't give up the survey data they have collected. In response, Lee BB shoots Gurathin in the leg and vows to murder every one of his coworkers individually. The one who needs a small fortune and assisting her employers. The third-party Preservation Ox has been fighting from the shadows. Guarantees her plenty of credits. Wedge's offers of assistance and her pleas for Lee BB's decency are met with indifference. Gurathin gives up their results because he cares much more about his friends than he does about confidential information. Lee BB celebrates her win by mocking in the manner of a villain monologue how simple it was to win over their gullible hearts. If the beacon explosion resolved that issue for her, she also claims responsibility for the murders of Mensah and Murderbot. The Mensah and Murderbot detective do enter the room with a heroic stomp, their timing perfect. Lee BB presses the gun to Gurathan's crying temple, but before she can finish threatening, Murderbot shoots her in the head, leaving her corpse headless. Rathi throws up, Pinamly bursts into hysterical laughter, and blood and brain matter spray upon Gurathan and Baron Wedge. Even Mensah looks at Murderbot with astonished, evaluating eyes before she attempts to rally her devastated co-workers. It's not quite correct to say that Murderbot was disappointed by their responses. Judging from its binge-watching experience, it didn't anticipate a bad response to saving their lives and defeating an adversary. Its inner monologue, however, is colored with confusing animosity and a stream of delight as it marches off to mend its spinal column. The team's developing affection for it was dashed by its vivid savagery, which also disproved their notion that Murderbot was as human as they were. Murderbot muses, and that felt good.